You know that specific feeling when you sit down at a beautifully lit restaurant, the ambiance is perfect, and the waiter hands you the menu.
Oh, yeah. That's usually the peak of the evening. It's just this moment of pure anticipation.
Right. You're looking at a physical list of culinary possibilities.
It's the starting line of a great experience. You're settling in, the evening is stretching out ahead of you, and you are just, waiting to see what the chef has put together.
But then imagine you open that heavy, leather-bound menu, and the entire thing is in a second language.
Oh, that changes everything. Instantly.
It really does. That feeling of possibility just vanishes. The letters start to blur together. You feel this sudden visceral spike of adrenaline.
Yeah, the panic sets in.
Exactly. The waiter is navigating through the tables, walking directly toward you, pen poised. And instead of anticipating a great meal, you are mentally scrambling, completely terrified of opening your mouth and sounding like foolish.
It transforms what should be a leisurely, enjoyable evening into an intense, high-pressure performance. All the joy gets stripped away because your brain has suddenly shifted into pure survival mode.
That panic is exactly what we are tackling in today's deep dive. Welcome in, by the way. Our mission today is to help you conquer that specific, localized anxiety.
Which is such a common hurdle.
It is. We are going through a targeted, highly practical language learning script today. It's specifically designed for B1 and B2 conversational levels. The goal is to master English restaurant vocabulary so you never have to feel like a deer in the headlights when the waiter approaches.
And we are going to take this at a slow, deliberate pace. Because language learning isn't about rushing. It requires, a lot of patience.
Oh, absolutely.
That deliberate pace is crucial. This guide happens to be particularly brilliant for French speakers, though anyone navigating English as a second language is going to get a lot out of this.
For sure.
We are looking at the entire architecture of the restaurant experience. From walking through the front door to the moment you leave, we're going to map out the conversational expectations.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we even look at the specific phrases to use when the waiter arrives, we really need to understand why trying to order food in a foreign language feels so utterly physically exhausting.
It really does take a toll.
I mean, it genuinely drains your body.
It does, and our sources highlight two specific psychological mechanisms at play here. They call them menu paralysis and choice overload.
Right.
Even when you are speaking your native language, being confronted with a sprawling menu containing 50 different items is mentally taxing.
Oh, totally.
Psychologists point out that human beings have a finite amount of decision-making energy available on any given day.
I always think of it like a smartphone battery. You wake up with 100%, but every decision you make drains a little bit of it.
That is a perfect analogy.
If your brain is that battery, then trying to operate in a second language is basically like having a bunch of high-drain apps running in the background.
Yes.
You're actively translating vocabulary. You're stressing over verb conjugations. You're hyper-aware of your pronunciation.
And those background apps are consuming massive amounts of cognitive load. Your working memory is so tied up in the mechanics of simply forming a sentence that you literally don't have the bandwidth left to evaluate whether you actually want the chicken or the fish.
Which explains so much. By the time the waiter asks for my order, my battery is deep in the red.
Oh, I've been there.
I have to admit, when I've been in that situation traveling abroad, I routinely panic and just point at whatever the person at the table next to me is eating.
The classic panic pointing strategy.
I do it all the time. I'll just smile, point at a stranger's plate, and nod. Half the time, I don't even know what I've just ordered.
It's incredibly common, and it's a direct result of that cognitive overload. You are outsourcing the decision because your brain is tapped out. But the solution the sources offer here is fascinating. The antidote to cognitive overload isn't trying to study harder at the table. It's about memorizing a structural script in advance.
Like having pre-written lines for a play.
Precisely. When you memorize specific phrases for specific moments in the meal, those phrases move from your active working memory into automatic recall.
Oh, that makes sense.
You don't have to build the sentence from scratch every time the waiter approaches. You automate the structural language, which frees up your mental battery to actually focus on personalizing the choice and, enjoying the meal.
So you're just filling in the blanks. That makes a ton of sense. And to give our battery a massive head start, especially for the French-speaking listeners tuning in, let's look at how much of English dining culture is actually just borrowed French.
It's surprisingly vast.
You probably already have a ton of these pre-written lines sitting in your vocabulary.
The overlap is massive. The very foundation of dining out as an institutional concept is deeply steeped in French history. Our sources pull up this incredible legend about the origin of the word restaurant. The story goes that back in 1765, a Parisian named Boulanger opened up a small shop that specialized in selling restorative broths.
Restorative broths. So wait, it was basically an 18th century wellness clinic.
In a way, yes. People went there specifically to feel better. And the term boulanger allegedly used comes from the French verb restaurer, meaning to restore or to repair.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on this a little because I was looking through the source notes earlier.
Oh, about the historical accuracy.
Yeah, it explicitly points out that modern historians heavily debate whether this Boulanger character even existed. Some think he is a complete myth.
They do.
So are we saying that this multi-trillion-dollar global dining industry is entirely named after a guy who sold soup and might just be like a culinary ghost story?
What's fascinating here is that it's a brilliant historical irony. Whether Boulanger was a real man or just a fabricated marketing myth, the legend was so compelling that the concept took on a life of its own. Over the next century, the idea of a dedicated establishment where you go specifically to be restored by food spread like wildfire across Europe.
And it eventually crossed the channel into the English language.
It did. But when English speakers adopted this entirely new social concept, they didn't invent an English word for it. They kept the French name completely intact.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It's a fascinating quirk of linguistic history. English speakers are actively speaking French every single time they say they are going to a restaurant.
Yeah, that's so true.
And the borrowing didn't stop at the front door either. The sources point out that English adopted a massive chunk of its high-end culinary vocabulary directly from French.
Right, the fancy stuff.
Exactly. We're talking about foundational words like menu, cuisine, and à la carte.
So if you are a French speaker learning English, you aren't starting from scratch at all. Your battery is already half full because you are intimately familiar with the core architecture of the dining experience.
You already own the most intimidating vocabulary words on the page.
If our English dining vocabulary is already preloaded with French history, that should save us some serious battery life. So how do we spend that extra mental energy when we are actually sitting at the table?
Well, let's dive into the practical application of this script.
Sounds good.
The best way to approach it is chronologically. The very first interaction you have is going to be at the host stand. The host will usually ask, "Do you have a reservation?"
Now, obviously you know what reserving a table means conceptually.
Right.
But having the specific English noun reservation, the formal arrangement to have a table held specifically for you, it saves you from stumbling through a clumsy explanation at the door.
You definitely don't want to be saying, "I called earlier for a table."
No, you want to sound natural.
Right, you want to keep it clean and efficient. The script suggests an automated, confident response. Just, "Table for two, please." Or if you booked ahead, yes, under the name Dubois table for two, please.
Okay, so we are past the host stand, we are seated, and the waiter comes over to take our order. This is where the source material gets into the actual psychology of grammar, which I found fascinating.
It's the most important part.
It contrasts two different ways of ordering, saying, "I want this salmon," versus saying, "I'll have the grilled salmon."
This might be the most crucial cultural nuance in the entire language script.
Really?
Yeah, because in many languages, stating a direct desire is standard practice. It's just how you communicate a need. But in English, saying "I want" is grammatically accurate, yet it lands terribly.
It sounds incredibly demanding, almost aggressive.
It does.
It sounds like a toddler demanding a toy.
"I want the salmon." You can almost picture someone slamming their fist on the table.
Exactly. It completely violates the social contract of an English-speaking restaurant. The key to sounding truly fluent isn't just about using the right vocabulary. It's about softening the delivery.
Softening the delivery, right? When you use softer alternatives like "I'd like," or "could I have," or "I'll have," you change the entire power dynamic of the interaction. You make it collaborative.
Which is funny because the script suggests this highly polite "I'll have the grilled salmon." But honestly, if it were me sitting down at that table after a long flight, I am going straight for the biggest, messiest burger on the menu. Zero hesitation.
I'd expect nothing less from you. But the beauty of the script is that the structure remains the same regardless of the dish.
Oh, true.
Even if you are ordering a massive, greasy burger, you still apply the polite softener. You just say, "I'll have the burger, please."
Fair enough. The script also introduces a really helpful modifying phrase here for customizing your order. asking for something on the side.
That's a great one.
So I'll have the grilled salmon, please could I get the sauce on the side? Which simply means served separately in its own little dish, rather than poured all over the food.
That phrase is a fantastic tool for taking control of your meal without sounding difficult. But it also highlights a common trap. When your brain is working overtime just trying to retrieve the correct English word for sauce, it's incredibly easy to drop the social niceties and revert to direct demands.
Because your battery is draining.
Exactly. Mastering those softeners, the could I please get, is what bridges the gap between someone who is just translating words and someone who is a natural, confident speaker.
You're navigating the culture, not just the dictionary.
Well put.
But I imagine that polite, I'd like script goes right out the window if things get complicated. Like if you have a severe peanut allergy, you can't really afford to be indirect and collaborative.
That's a great point, and the script accounts for that flexibility. When health or dietary needs are on the line, the rules of polite softening shift.
They have to.
You still maintain a polite tone, but you have to become absolutely direct.
You can't leave room for misinterpretation.
Exactly. The source suggests leaning into a direct question, like quick question, is this dish gluten-free? Or, if you want the waiter to verify, you state the allergy clearly so they can check with the kitchen. I am allergic to gluten. It's direct, it's unambiguous, but it's still respectful.
Direct, but polite. Now, what about the geographical divide? Because the sources are very clear that English isn't just one monolithic set of rules.
Oh, not at all.
There are some significant traps waiting for you, depending on whether you were dining in London or New York.
The transatlantic divide is real, and it shows up right at the beginning of the meal and right at the end.
Okay, let's look at the beginning.
In the UK, that small dish you order before the main course is universally called a starter.
Which makes logical sense. It starts the meal.
It does, but in the US, that exact same dish is an appetizer.
Oh, right.
And it applies to side dishes, too. If you want fried potatoes in the UK, you order chips. In the US, those are fries.
And the end of the meal is totally different, too. In the UK, when you are ready to pay, you ask the waiter for the bill. But in American English, you have to ask for the check. I have to ask, though, why do these small regional differences actually matter?
What do you mean?
Well, if I am sitting in a diner in New York and I ask for a starter, the waiter knows I'm not asking for a dessert, right?
Right.
They can use context clues to figure out, an appetizer.
They absolutely can use context clues. The issue isn't whether the waiter will eventually understand you. The issue goes back to our battery analogy.
The cognitive load.
Yes, picture the scenario. You confidently ask for a starter, and the waiter hesitates and says, "Oh, you mean an appetizer."
Ah, I see.
In that split second, your brain registers a lack of comprehension. It causes a micro moment of confusion, and that confusion triggers an immediate spike in anxiety.
It throws you completely off your rhythm.
It drains your battery. Being geographically prepared, knowing whether to ask for the bill or the check, prevents those sudden panic spikes. It keeps you firmly in the driver's seat of the conversation.
That makes total sense. You want to maintain your momentum so you don't freeze up. And speaking of geographical differences, the sources highlight a massive one that always causes anxiety, which is tipping culture.
Oh, tipping is the invisible math of dining out, and it varies wildly.
It really does.
The script clarifies that in the UK and in France, service is often already included in the menu price. It's baked in.
Right.
But in the US, tipping is a fundamental part of the waiter's income and is entirely expected.
And we aren't talking about leaving a few spare coins on the table either. The standard expectation in the US is a 15 to 20% tip added on top of the total amount.
It's significant.
That is a massive financial and cultural difference to be aware of.
It completely changes the dynamic of how you evaluate the prices on the menu and how you handle the end of the meal.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Just taking the time to contextualize these specific moments of the meal, it is incredibly empowering.
It takes the fear out of it.
Because the beginning and the end of the meal are the high friction points that usually cause the most panic. To make absolutely sure our mental battery stays fully charged, let's lock in the 5 essential B1 and B2 vocabulary words from today's sources.
It's crucial to cement these in your mind. Let's start with a cooking temperature. Medium rare.
Medium rare, it's an adjective. So if you are ordering a steak and you want it cooked so it is still pink and slightly warm in the center, you apply your softeners and say, "I'd like my steak medium rare, please."
Perfect. Next, let's review the end of the meal. We mentioned this earlier, but you need the noun for the total amount owed. In the UK, it's the bill.
Could we get the bill, please? And this is where the waiter might throw a curveball and ask how you want to handle that bill.
Right, they might say, do you take a card or would you like to split it?
Splitting it simply means dividing that total cost among the people sitting at the table.
Then we have our regional beginning of the meal word, the starter, the small plate before the main event.
And finally, the physical document you receive after everything is paid, the receipt. This is the printed proof of payment.
And we really have to talk about the phonetic trap with this word.
Yes. The spelling of receipt is a cruel joke for anyone learning English.
It really is.
There is a P right in the middle of it, but it is completely silent. If you were listening to this in your car right now or walking the dog, try saying it out loud.
Go ahead, try it.
Notice how your brain desperately wants to pronounce that P.
Yeah.
You have to consciously silence it. It is not receipt. It is receipt.
The orthography doesn't match the pronunciation at all. It's a classic English language trap.
It is.
What stands out to you as you review these? I want to encourage everyone listening to take a brief moment today and mentally role-play this.
It's a great idea.
Visualize the waiter approaching your table. Picture yourself seamlessly weaving these 5 key words, receipt, reservation, bill, starter, medium rare, into a real-world scenario. Mentally rehearsing the script is how you move it from working memory to automatic recall.
Because if you have the words for reservation and bill locked down automatically, the rest of the experience is just eating.
That is the ultimate goal. By internalizing this specific structural script, you can confidently walk into a restaurant in London, in New York, or anywhere in between.
You never have to resort to pointing at a stranger's plate again.
Exactly. You can finally direct your energy toward what actually matters, savoring the food and enjoying the company you are with, rather than spiraling over whether you used the wrong regional word or sounded too demanding.
You've successfully closed all those draining background apps, and your battery is fully charged for the evening. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Something to chew on during your next meal out.
There is a really compelling contradiction buried in what we've discussed today.
Think about this. We learned that English speakers borrowed almost all of their fanciest, most high-end dining terminology directly from the French. Restaurant, cuisine, à la carte.
Right.
The language of luxury and fine dining in English is fundamentally French.
Yet, at the exact same time, English speakers are obsessively, meticulously careful to use soft, indirect, almost passive phrasing.
Yeah. They go out of their way to say, I'd like, or could I possibly have, specifically to avoid sounding like they are giving a direct command.
So true.
So if the vocabulary of culinary luxury was inherited from one culture, but the behavioral script insists on actively avoiding any tone of authority or command, what does that say about how different cultures view the social hierarchy and the power dynamics between a customer and a waiter?
It's a fascinating look at how language tries to mask social inequality.
It really is. It turns out that when we are staring down a menu in a second language, we aren't just translating words on a page, we are actively navigating centuries of cultural history and unspoken social contracts.
But hopefully, with this script in your back pocket, those waters are just a little bit clearer.
And you can finally order exactly what you want, or rather what you would like.
Yes, what you would like.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.